Hello, my dog lovers. I'm so happy to be here. I can't even tell you how great it is to be here and have the opportunity to hang out and hopefully make a difference. I would like to welcome you to our webinar on liver care and detox and cleanse. And I also would like to welcome our team members, Emma, who is going to be hanging out with me. Hi, Emma.
Hi everyone. I'm excited to hang out with you guys.
Emma is the person behind helping us with the newsletters and communication and some of the videos and also with the production
Mhm.
here. And Justine is our customer care manager. Hi, Justine.
Hi, everybody.
And we are all dog lovers, and we also have another dog lover behind the scene. That's Robin. And Robin is going to be helping us with the behind the scene technology. And I'm so glad to be here because when it comes to our health of our animals, they're all connected. So whatever you learn about your dogs today, you can also apply it to loosely or less so to your own health. I also would like to invite you to have a vibrant chat and conversation. We also will be sharing this recording with you in the next few days or maybe a week or so. I don't want to promise tight deadline because it always takes a little longer, as you know. But I would like to start with a story that just happened recently here. I have wonderful neighbors. They're in their late 70s and they used to have two dogs. And I'm saying used to have two dogs because one of the dogs just recently passed away. And it was a really heartbreaking situation because it's an emergency situation where my neighbor called me saying that her dog is lying under the bushes and she doesn't know what to do, and her husband was traveling. So I run up and very quickly I was able to see that this dog was most likely bleeding internally, and I suspected spleen tumor. We rushed him to the local veterinary clinic, and unfortunately he passed away. And when these things happen, I go into this kind of mode of sadness and grieving, and then I try to bounce back by thinking, what can I do? How can I actually prevent these things from happening? And for at least a couple of years, I was trying to actually bring my friends and neighbors onto a little different path because obviously they were feeding food that wasn't ideal. The dogs were not very active and kind of overweight. And after this particular doggy died, I'm not going to mention his name for privacy, I could see that my friends started to worry about their other dog. The first question was, what can I do? What can I do to actually make the sister dog, better? And I kind of started them on a little protocol. It took a little longer to convince them that this is the right thing to do because they were immediately worried, what if we do something wrong, right? And this second dog was on NSA. It was not moving really well, was on really not very good quality processed food. And so I could see that there is such a huge potential, but I also could see that they're worried that they would do something wrong. So I wanted to do something really, really simple so they would see the results. And so the first thing that we did blood tests and what I call preventive ultrasound, meaning that the local veterinary clinic did an ultrasound and they determined that the dog is okay, which was big celebration. But then I knew that we needed to go to the next step. And so the first thing I thought, what do I do if my house is messy? Well, I clean it. And so we started with the cleanse, and that was it. It's been 3 weeks. This dog has gone already through transformation that makes me happy every time I think of her. She stops by here every two days or so to visit PAX, and I can already see her body changing, her body shifting. Her body's not as dense. She's less stiff. She's moving better. She wants to go for longer walks. And this is just 3 weeks at 11 years of age. So this kind of prompted me to think, I need to talk a little bit more about liver cleanse and detox because this is what we've done with this doggy and nothing else. And there is so much in store that every time my friends come, I say, well, just wait, like there's more to come and it's going to be amazing. Your dog is going to be transformed. And this is how it all started. So today I'm here to kind of give you a really common sense idea what to do about toxins and cleanses. And I know that he submitted many questions. And when I kind of look at all the questions, you guys make so much sense because I can see that you not only think of toxins and detox and the fact that our dogs live in a very different environment than the ancestors, but also that you're asking the right questions. And you also are concerned about some of the things that are happening in veterinary medicine. And, I have a huge respect to all my colleagues and what is, and the hard work that they do. But I'm also seeing some relatively serious problems with the commercial veterinary medicine, the corporate veterinary medicine that has been coming up in the US and Canada a lot, and probably in Europe as well, even though it's a little behind. That it is really focused on the reactive medicine. It is focused on using of drugs and vaccines and chemicals. And I'm not going to hide knowing that these corporate veterinary identities or entities actually, not identities, entities, that's my English, entities actually pay their veterinarians on production. So the more they bill, the more they get paid. And obviously veterinarians have also kids at school or, they have to pay their mortgages and all that stuff. So the whole system is kind of broken. And what we're trying to do here is to empower you, and doesn't necessarily mean that you should not be using these veterinary clinics. Of course you will. And most veterinarians are well-meaning and they will do exactly what is necessary, not more. But I also want you to be empowered and knowing that you can pretty clearly discern what is necessary and what may not be as necessary. So this is part of the project, a big project, many-year-long project that we are kind of in the middle of. So what do we do about liver? Obviously, liver is a very important organ. And as I said, our dogs do not live in an environment that is pristine. It's been a long time since he was like that. Maybe hundreds of years ago when there weren't any industrial pollutants, where heavy metals weren't as distributed in the environment and in our food chain. It all has changed so much. We also use plastic. Our dogs live in cities that are not exactly the most natural places. And so we really need to understand that what we are dealing with is not 1850 or even further back. It is 2026. And one of the reasons why our dogs have so many issues with liver disease, liver enzyme elevations, and the overall signs that their liver and their system is burdened. One of the reasons is that there's so much going on. Thousands and thousands of new chemicals brought in the environment over the past several decades. So it is no surprise that we are often seeing dogs with liver enzyme elevation. And so when you get that, I know that most of you, if any of you here, and I suspect that there are people and dog lovers at this broadcast who have dogs with liver disease, when you see the results and when your vet tells you your dog has liver disease or the liver enzymes are elevated, I know that you worry, because I would worry too. The best part of seeing lab results is when everything is clear, right? There's like, the fear is lower, and also you're proud because you know that you're doing the best. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if your dog comes back with liver enzyme elevation or liver disease that you've done something wrong. It can be genetics, but it also can be the circumstances. So today I'd like to teach you and give you a little insight into how to assess the different risks and also what to do. So the liver is an interesting organ, and I see it as a like an amazing giant factory where it produces energy, it manages proteins, it manages sugar metabolism to a certain degree, it produces vitamins, like it is also participating in defense. So it's probably one of the most miraculous organ when it comes to the sheer number of chemical processes and reactions that take place in it, right? So if you kind of see your dog as a mega system, like very complex system, the liver is the governing area when it comes to metabolism. And if the liver struggles, the whole body feels it. The whole body goes into this lower than optimal state of existence. Obviously, I mentioned that just a few minutes ago, that our wild ancestors lived in a very different, or not ours too, but our canines, wild ancestors lived in a very different environment. And when you look at what the liver needs to deal with now in 2026, and what wasn't there just a few hundred years ago, you can see that evolution has not been able to catch up to kind of mitigate and detox all the foreign chemicals and substances there are in the environment, right? So this is one of the reasons why the liver of so many dogs, the livers of so many dogs struggle. The liver enzymes are kind of one of the guiding factors in assessing whether our dogs have liver disease or not. But it also may be just a little red light on the dashboard that something is going on. And the most important part for or enzyme for the liver cell damage is ALT. And ALT, when ALT elevates, it's real. It may be mild, it may be severe. And I'm sure some of the dogs that live with you have very severe elevation of liver enzymes. But the liver has a great ability to regenerate and restore as well. So this is good news. Like if you had kidney damage or if you had cardiac disease, that is much more difficult to address. But there's a certain breaking point where the liver cannot regenerate anymore. So it's important to understand it, important to catch it early so you don't really need to face a situation where nobody can do anything, right? There's almost like a tipping point. The other enzymes here are not as specific. I know that many of you have been concerned about alkaline phosphatase, which is it's an enzyme that is not specific. We've been taught that alkaline phosphatase is elevated in inflammation with certain drugs or corticosteroids especially. We need to be cautious. If it's elevated, we understand that there's inflammation, but we don't really know whether it's related to the liver or something else. And AST and GGT are also not as specific. AST reflects muscle and liver, and GGT reflects bile duct flow. So if there is an obstruction in the bile ducts, if some of you humans have gallbladder issues and gallbladder stones, your GGT may actually elevate. It is not as common for dogs to have major gallbladder stones, but sometimes they do, and they can have also bile sludge, and it may slow down the flow of bile. Bile is important for fat digestion. So one of the functions of the liver is producing bile that helps you and your dog to digest fats. I'm not really sure why this slide is actually gray as opposed to white, but I hope you can read it. So there is mild liver enzyme ALT elevation, and then there's severe. So if it comes to the mild liver enzyme elevation over 20%, it can sometimes be normal if there is no other clinical signs in dogs that are on fresh diet. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the fresh diet actually aggravates the liver. It just means that the normal curve is a little different in processed food-fed dogs and raw-fed dogs. So if your dog's liver enzymes are slightly elevated, otherwise they're fine, there are some steps you can do, but you don't need to necessarily say, oh, for sure, my dog has liver disease, okay? So that's an important one. And if it's stable, that's another good sign, right? So if there's high rise and consistent, persistent rise of the liver enzymes, that is when we really need to worry. But even if I don't really know if my dog's mild liver enzyme elevation is significant or not, we can take them through a little bit of a tune-up. Now, the sign of liver disease, I'm not going to read them because I really don't like reading slides that you can read yourself, because I know that you can read. But the most important part that I would like to emphasize here is that the liver is connected with the digestive tract and also the skin. So if you have a dog that has itchy skin, irritated ears, redness, and so on, it may be that the liver is out of balance. And I've had quite a few dogs in the practice who would get agitated inflamed, itchy, and had all sorts of different skin issues when their liver is out of balance. And as soon as I address the liver, everything calms down. So I have some of my clients and friends now knowing that when their, let's say, pit bull's ears get aggravated, they just need to do detox. And it's really simple. You don't end up with ear infections that need antibiotics, steroids, and other treatments. You don't end up with high veterinary bills because now you know, okay, I have a pit bull and that pit bull has higher propensity to ear problems. But I know that when I actually finely tune their liver, the ears will calm down or the skin will calm down. So that actually teaches you about the connection between the liver and the ears and the skin. The gut is also another important part, and that can be tuned up with obviously proper diet and also probiotics, but we will not be focusing on that as much today. So remember that if your dog is not feeling well, it may be because of liver. And today I'd like to take you through a few different steps here. What I do for my dog packs, what I do for my patients, what I also do for myself. If I go to a restaurant where there's really delicious but not very good food, or if I have a glass or two of wine, which is very rare, but I don't necessarily force myself to abstain 100%, but I know that if I have a glass of wine with a dinner, I may actually do a little mini liver cleanse after that. So I'm going to take you through the 3 steps here. The first thing that I wanted to say is that diet is the key. I'm sure that you've seen so many different videos and posts on processed food. You have seen many pieces and topics presented. I'm not going to tell you about how bad processed food is because you already most likely know. And if you do feed processed food of the lower quality that is just heated, dehydrated in a kind of like the kibble style, try to change it. With my neighbors and friends, we also have changed their dog's food. And I do think that it does take a little longer than, let's say, a cleanse, but it does make a huge difference. And if we want to keep our dog's liver clean and well functional, and we give them kibble, or we even give them prescription liver diets that are horrifying from my perspective. If I look at the labels, I go like, how can someone add wood chips, or how can someone add all these different carbohydrates that are really hyperglycemic and shoot the glucose up and stress the pancreas and also the liver? How can someone assume that if they give food of inferior quality, that their dog's liver will be better? So whenever I'm unsure, and even if there was an argument between liver-specific diets and natural food, whenever I'm unsure, I go back to nature. Like I would never go to processed food as opposed to nature. I would never go to what humans invented when it comes to nutrition and general quality of life and well-being. I would go back to nature because we humans have opinions. Number one, opinions are not true. They're just opinions. Or truth, they're not just opinions. And number two, I would have a hard time to actually find anything where nature was wrong and we humans were right. It just doesn't exist. So feeding processed food to dogs that have liver issues would be like pouring sewage into a glass of pure water, expecting that it's going to be better, right? So we want to keep our dogs' bodies and our own bodies as clean. And because we can't really eliminate toxins 100% from the environment, it's just impossible, we need to do something extra. So if you're asking, well, if I feed my dog just good food, like, is that enough? From my perspective, I have not seen that being enough in 2026. Maybe 100 to 100 years ago, it would be different. So this is what I do as well. Like what I'm presenting here is what I do for PAX, myself, and everyone else that is willing to hear me. So, if your dog has been diagnosed with liver disease, here are a few guidelines. You can take screenshots. We will also be sending you the recording of this video. So if you want to just watch and not really be busy with your computer. But it's super important to give either raw meat or cooked meat, vegetables, and avoid processed food mainly, avoid chemicals, avoid all the stuff that is not good for us and our dogs. It's relatively simple. There are some leafy greens that are really beneficial. There are also some herbs that are beneficial. Cilantro, for example, is known to eliminate heavy metals. So if your dog has been eating a lot of fish, you want to give cilantro. You also want to reduce inflammation by feeding turmeric. Dandelion is amazing, dandelion root and leaf. And leafy greens generally are balancing. And one of the reasons why our dogs like to eat grass is that they balance and cleanse their body and their system. There's nothing wrong with that. And I know that some of you may worry, like my dog is eating grass, what is going on? Well, what's going on is that your dog actually knows better what they need. And sometimes they may have upset stomach, of course, and they may chew the grass and then throw up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong. The next thing that I have been using, and it's been such a godsend, is Liver Cleanse and LiverTune. Whenever I see that there's a problem, and canine liver disease is a serious problem, I try to find a solution. And when some people ask me, well, why did you formulate this product, or why do you formulate supplements? I was just simply not happy what was available. I had problems with not only the ingredients sourced from China, but also non-fermented ingredients that are not as bioavailable. I had issues with plastic packaging of products. I just did not like what I had. So eventually I started formulating, and I use LiverTune on regular basis, and I give it to packs as well, because I know that it does make a difference. And the only thing that we all need to do is to actually go to the reviews and testimonials at livertune.com and see what people experience, because I don't want you to just blindly trust me. I want you to read the stories and how fantastic it is actually to go there and see that it makes a difference. Now, fermentation is actually one of the unique offering that we and our company has. It is important to know that fermentation increases the bioavailability 5 to 7 times. It is super important that we know that we actually have someone doing some painting in the house, and they're trying to say goodbye. So my apology that I actually got disrupted. So fermentation increases bioavailability 5 to 7 times. It is important to understand that fermentation is 2-stage. So we use actually beneficial yeast that pre-digest the ingredients. And then we use probiotic bacteria, not the gastrointestinal probiotic bacteria, but general probiotic bacteria, helpful bacteria that will produce postbiotics. And the postbiotics have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer effect. And there is like dozens and dozens of those. So it's not only that it pre-digests, but it also provides some additional components. And this is one of the reasons why it works so well. When I discovered fermentation many years back and the technology, I was not sure whether it would make some sort of difference. But one of the reasons why it does is exactly that it pre-digests, increases bioavailability, and has postbiotics as well. So it's almost like we take the ingredients, instead of putting them in the capsules, so drying them and putting them in the capsules, we actually process them so they're ready for being used a little more. You can look up the ingredients in LiverTune. I will tell you about how I use it and what I do. So some of you were asking, so what do you do for liver cleanse? Now, I want to, every time I actually give suggestions and recommendations, I want to make things simple, because whenever I go online and I see how much confusing information there is, I know that I have to kind of bring it back to simple. And so instead of telling you and listing you all the different effects of all the different herbs, what I can tell you is that every single ingredient that I chose was based on scientific research, my own clinical experience, because I used these ingredients before, and also what I've seen in the trials. And we sometimes joke that we test products on humans before we introduce them to dogs. It is actually true. I'm usually the first test animal that actually gets the formulas, and then I go, okay, I feel better, I feel worse, and then we go to other humans, my family and friends who are willing to kind of try, and then we go to my dog packs and dogs of friends, and then we go finally to offer the product. But with LiverTune protocol, it's fairly simple. If you've never done a cleanse, I usually recommend doing the first cleanse for 4 to 6 weeks. And after that, you go monthly cleanse for a week. And I caught myself actually lately in the last year or so taking it the odd dose extra because, as I said, like sometimes I go to dinner and I would eat food that is not exactly the best for me. And so then I pop 3 LiverTunes and I go to bed. And I wake up the next morning and I'm hungover and I'm feeling much better. But definitely I put it in my calendar, and once a month for a week, every day I would take 3 capsules of LiverTune for me, and I would give the dose, I would give 2 capsules to Pax. And again, the doses are on the label, so you don't need to necessarily remember because little dogs will obviously get much less. If your dog has been diagnosed with elevated liver enzymes, and even if they have been even 20% or less over the normal limit, then I would recommend giving LiverTune on an ongoing basis for 3 months and recheck the enzymes with your veterinarian again. And if they're elevated, still just keep going and check the enzymes every 3 months. If they go down, stop, do monthly, 1 week long cleanse, and then recheck again. So I would basically go from on an ongoing basis for liver disease to normal enzymes, stop and do just monthly cleanse. If they come up, then just go to the daily dosing. And if your dog will never come back down, which actually doesn't happen very often, but it is possible, then I would give it on an ongoing basis. So again, take a note of this slide because this is kind of like a summary of what I would normally do. The product is not intended for pregnant and lactating dogs because we have not tested on pregnant and lactating dogs. What you will see is exactly what I've seen with my neighbor's dog. Better energy, they just feel better. We also know that lower toxins, lower inflammation means lower propensity to cancer. And every dog that I've seen will benefit. There are very few dogs that would actually not have any positive changes. But again, instead of me saying this, go to the reviews, see what other people say. And the other thing is that if you try LiverTune, there's a lifetime money back guarantee. Like, we are so confident that these products will work that we don't mind if the odd person decides to return the product because of whatever reason they have. Because I'm confident that if I give you this option and risk-free guarantee, that I'll be able to make more difference. And I always tell my staff, and also I kind of mention that often, that if I really wanted to retire and do whatever else, I can. But I just love this so much that I just don't want to retire. And the other thing, this is really honest, I always go like, I don't want to take someone else's supplements. I don't want them to be downgraded to whatever acquisition company would take them. Like, I just don't want that. So I'm kind of in the situation where I better make it interesting and also kind of fun. I'm super grateful that I can be here for you, because if I can connect, if I can feel that I'm making a difference, then I'll do it forever. Because what would I do otherwise? Like, would I be, I don't know, sitting on a chair or rocking or being on my iPad? Or I definitely would have more tax, less tax, but packs. I would have definitely more time for packs. That's what I wanted to say. But otherwise, I think this is a good combination. Packs is used to my rhythm in the day. We go for walks. Everything is good. So the third step, and this is something that we don't really need to emphasize a lot today. These are the Fab4 essentials that I give to my dog, Pax, and I take myself. I suggest to my patients, and many of you have tried. Obviously, the food is not what it used to be. Soils are depleted. We have seen the changes again with the Fab4 essentials. But before you reach for them, just start a cleanse. Just do the one thing that will really give you an idea how well your dog will do after the cleanse. And there can be a bigger or smaller difference, but then you go to step 3 and add minerals and amino acids, multivitamin that is fermented again, gut sense that is fermented and digestive support strong, and feel good omega, which is sustainable omega-3 fatty acids. I know that some of you may see these as pills and powders, and we are so conditioned to see pills and capsules as medication, but these are just concentrated nutrients at time when the food doesn't provide what it needs. And I didn't always believe that supplements were necessary. There's one client of mine, her name is Eva, and in the 90s, she and Emma maybe remembers her. Eva used to come to the practice and always said, Peter, you have to think of supplements. And I was like some of other people, not believing that it was necessary. But now, at the age of 62, I go, wow, I should be probably more decrepit. I should not be feeling as good as I do. Like, what's going on? So this is what I do, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. And so I've been very diligent about doing this for my dog Pax, who is now going to be 7 this year, and also for myself. And I go, wow, this is actually better than expected. So I'm just sharing this with you because I don't know anything else that has worked as well for me as this kind of protocol. But there's another thing that I would like to mention today, and that is the challenges with hormone health. Some of you, actually I wanted to say were part of the pack, or have been part of the pack of hormonehealthfordogs.org that was created with Dr. Karen Becker. And the reason why we did that was simple. We started seeing some research that promoted or confirmed that neutering and spaying the conventional way leads to luteinizing hormone elevation. That's the hormone that stimulates the gonads to produce testosterone and estrogen. But when the gonads are missing, the luteinizing hormone shoots through the roof and causes inflammatory changes. And the inflammatory changes may also affect the inflammation may also affect the liver. So if you have a dog that is spayed and neutered and has liver enzyme elevation, the next thing after doing a cleanse and all that, if the liver enzymes don't go down, I would really look into hormone replacement therapy. And if you are unsure what it is about, and if you want to know more details, join us at hormonehealthfordogs.org. because we have about 7 hours of recordings and also 50 studies that list why the conventional spaying and neutering is not optimal for our dogs. Now, there are some other methods. We don't promote homelessness. We want dogs to be safe, and all of the dogs have homes, ideally. So you can use either hormone-sparing sterilization, like vasectomy, or ovary-sparing spay, or if you're a responsible dog lover, you can leave your dog intact, but you have to make sure that they don't roam around and make puppies. So make sure that you understand that liver inflammation and liver disease can be also caused by elevation of luteinizing hormone, and learn more. Special consideration. If your dog has elevated liver enzyme, here are the steps that you may want to take. It's simple. It's not very expensive if you look at how expensive veterinary care is, and also how emotionally difficult it is to actually get the bad news that our dogs have a really serious problem. This is a no-brainer. And when you get into the routine, you'll see that you'll probably be sharing this information with others, because it's so much better than multiple vet visits and serious problems. I know that some of you wanted to know how to detox our dogs after vaccination. The first thing is, you may want to learn how to minimize vaccines. And if you don't know how to do that, you can just go to my website, peterdobias.com, and type in vaccination, and it'll come up with the blog, how to reduce the unnecessary vaccinations. Now, obviously, build strong baseline. So feeding our dogs good food and giving them the essentials and all that is important, good hydration and all that. And I'm talking about vaccines and anesthesia. So now I'm going to anesthesia. Make sure that every time your dog goes under anesthesia, whether it's for dental cleaning or other surgeries, that you do baseline blood work. And make sure that you also look at medications. Now, I have been a big proponent of reducing medication down to minimum. When I see some medical reports from my friends' dogs, my head spins, because some of the medication that is being used is so unnecessary. And I'm almost thinking, and tell me if you guys would be interested, I'm almost thinking taking some of these medical reports and just kind of explaining why I would not give this and what I would do in cases of, let's say, prescribing gabapentin or something like that, which is a very common drug. Or I've seen situations where a dog would be prescribed rice for pancreatic inflammation on the day it was diagnosed, and I would fast the dog, and I would definitely not give hyperglycemic food. So there's so many different areas where we can adjust medication, reduce medication, understand what it does and what it doesn't, and how to replace it with simple steps. So this is something that I'm actually thinking, that my mind has been busy about that. And after anesthesia, again, do liver cleanse that is about 4 weeks long. You can do it a little shorter if your dog is doing well, if it's young. But generally, a 4 week long liver cleanse is the way I would operate, and I recommend. Again, clean diet and adjust intensity of the cleanse based on the age. And I'll go to the next slide because I know that many of you were wondering, what do we do in older dogs? Also, dogs on chronic medication. Again, not chronic medication, but with chronic conditions. This is my typo in the slide. Again, try to do this and try to actually do liver cleanses regularly. If your dog has aggravated skin, aggravated ears, or any kind of immune system agitation, LiverTune is now the part that I do almost always. And it seems to work so well that I'm actually thinking using some of the ingredients in other formula that I'm thinking of. Senior dogs, try to go slow if you know that your dog is reactive. I just recently had a friend who had a dog with skin issues and ear issues, and she started full on with the full dose of LiverTune, and her dog got aggravated and started being really itchy, and for a day or two. And so she called me and I said, just go 25% and start gradually increasing it over the next 2 weeks. And I just saw her yesterday, and her dog is absolutely fine. And she's saying his skin's never been better. And this is just a couple of weeks after we started. So again, it can really make a difference if you go slower in dogs that are really toxic or senior or just sensitive overall. There's also a healthy dog tool. If you go to resources to our website, there's a healthy dog tool that will give you an idea what supplements to give, and it has more information about how to introduce them and what to do. I mentioned that the early stages of liver disease may be reversible. I also mentioned that the advanced stages may not be reversible. Liver cirrhosis and chronic serious liver disease is real, and dogs can't really go through liver transplant. They could, but I don't think anyone would do that. 2 reasons. I don't really see a point of taking our dogs through the suffering. And I'm always really cognizant of the fact that we need to do things that are good for our dogs. And even though we may be really heartbroken to lose them, we really need to focus on what is important and what is good for them and their quality of life. So, hanging on is not good, and giving up or not doing enough is not good either. And liver has an amazing ability to restore and regenerate. Actually, if you cut off half of the liver, it would regrow and regenerate. So that's good news. So it does have regeneration ability. Obviously, these are just repetitions of the practical steps, making sure that you use the right cleaning products in your house, that you don't walk your dog on golf courses that are full of chemicals, that you watch really where the lawn is too perfect. Don't let your dog walk on that. I know that many people think that golfing is actually a really great idea for humans. And if the golf courses are empty in the fall or winter, it's great to walk our dogs on it. I would not be taking my dog to a golf course because it's full of chemicals and pesticides. Filtered water, drinking water, important. Air quality, obviously important. I know some people who love their dogs, but their house is a mess. There's dust and there's dirt and it's not very clean. I'm not necessarily saying using chemicals because they actually destroy the balance of the beneficial bacteria in the household. Using apple cider vinegar or just regular vinegar and a little bit of soap to mop floors and obviously vacuum. We recently got this mopping robot. I love it because when we see hair and when after cooking, we just let it go and it does its job. So it's important to kind of prevent dust and excessive stimulation of the immune system. And again, using drugs is my last resort. I have not been on single medication for decades now, and I I'm alive. So make sure that you kind of learn and look and see the drugs as a way of maybe extinguishing the symptoms, but also adding other foreign substances. So if you're on medication that is necessary for your health condition, don't beat yourself up. I understand. But minimizing them and not popping pills for every headache or every muscle ache or anything that could be actually dealt with differently, successfully, is important. Now we're almost at the end of our little presentation, and I just want you to know that it is really up to us, that we can't really blame anyone else for what is being done because you're in charge of your dog. You can make decisions for them. And I know that it's sometimes hard to go to a veterinary clinic and say, hey, I don't really want to do this. I want to do this. Or if there's a suggestion, you can ask for alternative. Or you say, hey, listen, I've seen that liver disease can be also caused by luteinizing hormone elevation. I would like to consider hormone replacement therapy. Do you do that or not? So there's so many different ways of actually navigating through the maze of health challenges. But I think that you are already good because you're number one, you're here. It's pretty clear that you're learning and learning from other sources as well. And I'm here to answer your questions now, if you have any. And thank you for listening. And don't forget to join our pack. We have a newsletter that I sent 2-3 times a week. I share stories, I share cases, new findings, research, everything that hopefully will help you to keep your dog healthy. So Emma, Justine, I'm here to answer questions.
Yeah, I know whenever you were talking about diet, we did have a couple of questions wondering what you would think about freeze-dried food.
Yeah, freeze-dried food is definitely a better food than processed food, heated food. I think that it's a good alternative. Would I make it the mainstay of my dog diet? No. Would I say that convenience is a good reason enough to give freeze-dry food only? No. I think it's a good complementary diet, and I am not against it. But if someone says, everything is preserved as in fresh food, I would say probably not, but I don't have enough data. So you may need to ask the companies that make it and maybe look at independent research as well. Whenever I'm unsure, I'll go back to nature. So if I could feed my dog freshly killed rabbit or bird, I would do that. But because I can't do that, the second best is to do frozen. And we also know that we need to feed previously frozen meat when it comes to all the herbivores such as rabbits, cows, sheep, goat, all those may have tapeworm. So we need to freeze them prior to feeding. Vegetables, again, fresh vegetables, better. Some people ask, well, is cooked food reasonably close to raw food? I would say yes. But again, I think that our dogs do better on raw food, but some dogs may be an exception. So I'm not really too hung up on that. Freeze-dried is probably right after that. So, if you are busy and you have kids and it's for convenience, I would say great. But again, I'm not an expert in freeze-dried feeding, and I think that these companies do a good job, and I'm not against their food. I just don't feed it as in my primary source of nutrition for packs.
Another one that we have is, would milk thistle be enough of a detox?
I've seen that, and I've seen those questions, and I've tried it before, and it doesn't seem to be as comprehensive. The herbs work in synergy, so you can try it. Like if you have, let's say, a dog with liver enzyme elevation, you can use just milk thistle. But there are several differences. The milk thistle is not fermented, so you don't have as much bioavailability in that. And the synergy of all the different herbs in LiverTune, like ashwagandha and cilantro and some other ingredients, they're not only fermented, they don't only have postbiotics, but they also work in synergy. So my experience has been that it works better. I have not been using milk thistle only myself. If I saw that it would be working as well, then I would be using only milk thistle. And I know that it doesn't. But I would be very happy to read results or see. It may actually reduce the liver enzymes in some situations, it may not in others. But the milk thistle is not the only ingredient that I kind of focused on and the research that I used in formulating this product. So it's ultimately up to you. I really don't believe that we should be pushing something that people don't want to use on you. I think that the most important part is if I do something on my own, then I feel I should be recommending it. If there's something that I don't do or would never do, then I should not be recommending it. And I go back to processed food. I've heard that many of the people who work in processed pet food companies don't feed the food to their dogs because it's not good. I take the supplements, I give them to pack. So that's all I can recommend. If I didn't believe that they would be working, I would not be using them. But yes, milk thistle may be less expensive, but when you look at the benefits, it's up to you to kind of decide and go with what feels right for you.
That makes sense. And another one we have is, let's see, can LiverTune be given ongoing for healthy dogs and also for dogs who have the elevated enzymes?
Yeah, so ongoing, I would not be giving LiverTune on an ongoing basis because I would say that it's unnecessary. I don't take it on an ongoing basis. I don't give it on an ongoing basis to packs. I give it for 1 week every month after the initial 4 to 6 week cleanse. If you know that your dog has been on processed food for a long time, if you know that your dog has been exposed to chemicals, or if you've been walking on lawns that are chemically treated, or even feeding, more than small amount of fish, I would recommend staying on for 6 weeks. And after that, just once a month for a week. And what I do, I mix the supplements in either something palatable. Pax actually eats them in vegetables. So I usually just make my vegetables, and I'm going to be posting actually vegetable uh, processing, or not processing, but preparation post fairly soon. I prepare the vegetables, then I put omega oils, I mix the supplements in. And if I have ground meat, I would actually mix the meat in. But I often give packs just a chunk of meat or carcasses. So I give them vegetables separately. And sometimes if I see that he is not too keen on vegetables because I made a blend that is not really to his liking, then I pour a little bit of olive oil, or I put a little bit of sardine oil, or maybe avocado, so he likes it, and then he eats the supplements without the meat. But some dogs are more picky, so you just have to play with it and see what works for them.
Well, there's a few questions in regards to giving LiverTune with specific medical conditions, one being chronic pancreatitis and one also with MVD.
Yeah, thank you. And I just realized that I didn't answer the second part of the question. That's can we give a LiverTune on an ongoing basis for dogs with liver disease? And the answer is yes. But I would give it for 3 months. I would recheck the ALT. That was one of the slides. Let me just go back to the slide actually. Again, give for 3 months on daily basis, then recheck the values. If they're normal, then transition to week-long cleanse every month, but then recheck the liver enzymes again in 3 months after that. And if they're back up, then you may want to continue on an ongoing basis, and you may need to establish a dose that is optimal. I've had some dogs that would be on it for their lifetime virtually, and I've seen them doing well without any side effects. But my goal is always to, if it comes to relatively strong herbal formulation like LiverTune, I usually just kind of minimize the use, similar to medication, but it is quite different than regular drugs. So try to measure the dose, the ALT every 3 months, and see how your dog is doing. If it persists, or if it's gradually reducing but still abnormal, then continue going until it's normal. And then stop, do monthly cleanse, recheck again, and see where you're at. You may end up with not needing to go back to daily, or you may end up needing to go back to daily. And Emma, to answer a question that you mentioned, the first condition was pancreatitis. The second condition was
MVD, so a dog who's on heart medication.
Yeah. So mitral valve disease is virtually more of a anatomical abnormality, where the mitral valve that prevents the backflow of blood when the heart contracts, it prevents the backflow of the blood to the chamber, and increases pressure in the lungs. So if the leakage is there, then there is no real biochemical or organic system not organic, but organ like liver disease or pancreatitis or something like that. So you can definitely give LiverTune. When it comes to pancreatitis, repeated pancreatitis, there's an article on pancreatitis. Definitely not contraindicated to give LiverTune and finely tune the body and reduce inflammation. But I would be also looking at two areas. One of them is hormone absence related issues, spay and neuter syndrome. And the second one would be injury or imbalance to the first lumbar vertebra, actually behind the last rib. It's actually the first lumbar vertebra. So if you put your thumbs on your dog's spine and feel where the last rib is, that's the point that often is tight, congested, injured, and it can actually affect the energy flow to the pancreas and can cause inflammation and other issues. Obviously, diet is important because if we give our dogs high carbohydrate food, then pancreas needs to produce more insulin, and it can also lead to inflammatory changes. But going back to LiverTune, none of these two conditions are contraindicated, and I would have to, or autoimmune disease or Cushing's disease. Actually, this product has been really good for helping dogs with chronic Cushing's disease, adrenal dysfunction. But once again, the adrenal glands often get inflamed when there is absence of the sex hormones and elevation of luteinizing hormone. Hormone replacement therapy has become one of the key steps in addressing chronic disease. After I address nutrition, I detox dogs and check their spine and make sure that everything is fine. If I see that the problem still continues, then I look into hormone replacement therapy. Because we neuter dogs and we assume that there is no need for the sex hormones beyond reproduction, but that's not true. There's so many different metabolic effects, from organ function to reducing inflammation to function of the immune system, digestion. Every cell in the body gets affected. And this is why people and animals who are older actually may suffer from all sorts of different conditions that mean lack of regeneration. Because when we lose the sex hormones with aging or neutering and spaying, our body does not regenerate and maintain as well, and inflames more often. And inflammation leads to cancer. And we also know that neutered and spayed dogs have higher propensity to lymphoma, osteosarcoma, hemangiosarcoma, mast cell tumors. All those are more frequent in dogs. And even in male dogs, and I'm just kind of derailing a little bit here, male dogs have, if they're neutered, have 8 times higher rate of prostate cancer. They may not have enlarged prostate, which is related to sex hormones, but they will have 8 times higher propensity to prostate cancer in neutered dogs. So it's such an interesting topic, and we could go forever, but the LiverTune can be used in chronic conditions, and I can't even think of anything that it would be counterproductive in right now.
And we do have a question in the chat that says, I have a dog with intrahepatic liver shunt. I have been giving the LiverTune for several months and alternating through Greenman and soul food. Should I pause it with a dog with this condition?
If the liver enzymes are elevated, I would continue. Still elevated, I would continue on an ongoing basis. And the other thing is, I know that many of you are actually asking, should you retain the supplements or not? And I had a conversation like that with one of my team members. The thing is that, let's say vitamins, the daily dose of vitamins is different than the daily dose of minerals or daily dose of omega oil. So if we establish a daily dose, let's say I take 3,000 grams of, milligrams, not grams, that would be 3 kilos, 3,000 milligrams of omega oils a day, which is higher than on the label. If I take it only every second or third day, then I'm not getting the 3,000 milligrams a day. That is actually optimal. Or if there's certain requirement of vitamins, there's a certain flexibility, but still, if we alternate and give it every 7 days or every 3 days, it is not what I do for PAX or myself, because I know that these are very separate, different nutrients. I see them as building blocks. I don't see them as competing with each other, if you know what I mean. So we can actually have a conversation on pulsing and rotating. And the other thing that I've been asked, so shall I be rotating between different supplements? And I think that I will start back maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years back. Dogs would be roaming. they would be, and humans would be roaming. They would be actually sourcing nutrients based on their natural wisdom and propensity to choose what they need as well. But that is not true anymore. So that is out of the window. When it comes to changing different products and different brands, in principle, it would not be a bad idea. But I know that not all products are made equal. So then I go, okay, so what is my choice? Giving products that I don't know where the ingredients came from, giving products that are not fermented or made from chemical ingredients, like I don't necessarily like that. So I've opted for Pax and I to take fermented products that are basically from the one brand, because I do make it and I know that it's coming from good sources and it's tested and it's packaged in glass. But I can't really make you guys to do one or the other. And I don't want to sound like my products are the only good ones, but I know how they're made and I know that we are the only fermented product line and it seems to be working. And when you look at the reviews, when you look at the feedback, that's probably more important than what I'm saying right now in this kind of segment of our webinar, because I don't want you to blindly believe anyone. But if what I'm saying makes sense to you, then that's great. If it doesn't make sense, ask questions. But again, you're the decision maker, and I'm here to offer what I do to those who want it. And otherwise, an opinion is not necessarily the 100% absolute truth. This is how I deal with it, but you can deal with it in many different ways.
We also have a question. It makes sense. We also have a question on Greenman. They're asking about the copper in Greenman and if those levels should be a concern.
Yeah, we have not seen, we've done thousands and thousands of hair tests over the years. We used to offer a test which is called hair Q test. Unfortunately, because of the cross-border shipping issues with samples and so on from Canada to the US and back and forth, we had to basically stop to offer this test, but there's hair testing available in the States and in Canada, I believe. We have not seen any problems with elevated copper on dogs and Greenman. And we have, if you have done hair key test before, you know that we actually ask what supplements you are giving when you're sending the sample. We have not seen any problems. And even my hair samples, even though it takes me a little while to collect some hair, I have not had elevation of copper either.
We do also, I know you did touch on diet a bit, Peter, but I wondered if maybe you could go into more detail, because we do have quite a few questions asking about what proteins are best for their dogs, if they have elevated liver, as well. I believe you did touch also on raw versus gently cooked.
Wholesome foods are the most important part. Adding vegetables and meat together, about 30% vegetables, is better than just meat only. When I was in practice on daily basis, I would examine dogs and I would see that many of them have liver enzyme activation, or not liver enzyme activation, pardon me, liver point activation. And you can determine that by going to the rear portion of the thoracic spine, about thoracic 10 to thoracic 12 or so. And if those spots are sensitive, if you run your hands and push with your thumb very strongly, if your dog moves back or twitches their skin, then it means that the liver is activated. I've seen that being the case in dogs on meat-only diet. I also have seen meat-only dogs would have more frequent liver disease. And I think that there is the buffering and balancing and cleansing capacity of the vegetables that make a difference. So wholesome food, veggies, and meat is number one. You can go to Healthy Dog Food Recipe Maker on our website. If you go to resources, there is a recipe maker, and there's tons of information how to formulate diets. And it'll give you the dosing, it'll give you some ideas, what veggies are good, which ones are not. And we will be finely tuning this recipe maker in the next few months, but I haven't gotten to it yet. What to avoid is on the right side of this slide, okay? Rich, greasy meats, ideally kibble. Large marrow bones that have extremely high fat content. The marrow has high fat content. Cheap treats that sit in the dog bin in the pet store for months and never rot, right? Like, make them at home. You will know what goes in them. Or use one source, one ingredient treats. I'm not necessarily against all the dog treats, and I sometimes give packs dog treats, but I'm very careful, and I try to use, right now I'm using actually wild venison-based treats that sometimes is sweet potatoes or something like that, and they're made locally. Ingredients from China, a big issue. I have not seen a big difference between cooked and raw. So again, it's up to you. If you feel that your dog would do better on cooked, I don't have a big objection. Try to go with lower fat meats. Some people say that it would be better not to give the heating meats, but if your dog is chilly, then poultry is okay. Cool meats are duck, for example. Lamb is also heating, if I remember correctly. And the meat properties are also listed in the recipe maker. So I hope this helps.
And another question is, when taking supplements for the liver, does it tend to make the dog urinate more?
I would need to know what supplements for liver they're giving. It may not be, I haven't seen that with LiverTune, but it may be possible with some other supplements. I would have to at least look at the ingredients and see whether any of them would cause polyuria or increased urination. That's a fancy name for just increased pee. Any other questions? Emma, anyone?
No, well, there's a lot of them coming up in regards to just different kinds of protein. So I feel like you were touching a little bit on that already. So.
Yeah. You guys, if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to email us through the website at peterdobias.com. Justine and Emma and the whole team is ready to answer them, and I'll be standing by. I participate in many of the answers, but our team is also trained well, and they have all the resources and everything I wrote, the hundreds of blogs and articles that I wrote. Don't forget to visit the website. You can type in any topic, and I'm sure that there will be information on almost anything. But if you don't, just don't hesitate to email us. I am very happy to write on another topic if it's missing and if it's frequently asked. Obviously, I can't do everything, but between myself and my other colleagues, I hope we're making a difference. I really appreciate you being here. I also appreciate you wanting to learn and not believing everything that you're told. And I know that it's confusing out there. I know that there's so much information that sometimes you just want something simple. And because I've been around for quite some time, I've been in practice for 38 years, I've seen many situations, and I also am 62 years old and made myself a guinea pig. I think I can give you a good, solid core information how to address most of the health issues out there. My goal is to use 20% of the things available out there and make 80% difference. And the rest needs to be finely tuned with your veterinarian or myself. If I have the answer, I definitely will give it to you. But you don't need to always feel overwhelmed and confused. And this is one of my major goals. I want to make it simple for you. And I want to make sure that your dog has many more summers with you, and that your dog will also teach you how to look after your own health, unless you already do everything perfect. And we'll be back. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Justine and Emma as well, and Robin behind the scenes. And we'll be back. I'll be doing these lives again.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback, Peter, from the presentation.
Yeah.
Everyone's really appreciative. So I'm sure we'll get more questions through our emails as well following this.
Thank you. We'll be listening, and we'll try to focus on what matters to you. And once again, it makes me happy that I can be here. So take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.